Anthony Grassi here for College Town at the 2025 NACTA convention. Happy to sit down with University of Houston Victoria Director of Athletics, Ashley Walyuchow. Ashley, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, man.
So, the big move as we sit here right now happening in Victoria is you guys are exploring the very beginning phases as an institution of moving from the Houston system to the Texas A&M system. From athletics, from the athletics perspective, you will be one of two athletic departments in the UH system to one of a dozen within the A&M system, and you will be the third NAIA school within there. What would be how are you thinking through what that benefit may be for your department as you will have more peers to lean on given all the challenges going on around athletics?
Yeah, well, A&M Texarkana and A&M San Antonio are already in our conference in the Red River, so I've got good relationships with Darnell Smith and Ryan Wall, the ADs at those two schools. So from that standpoint, I don't think anything changes. Maybe the rivalry would become a little bit more interesting and maybe not so friendly. I think there's maybe some potential for, some sort of A&M Cup between the three of us and the sports that we all compete in. So, that's kind of piqued my interest a little bit. San Antonio is also the Jaguars. We were the Jaguars first, then they came along. So, that could be confusing. I look at it maybe as more of an opportunity to create some, again, unique branding and opportunities for competition between the two schools.
For sure.
So, but it's I'm relying on them a lot right now as we make that transition because it's administratively it's going to be a heavy lift. Policies, procedures, lining things up with how we did things in the UH system to how we're going to have to do things in the A&M system. And most of it has to be in place by September 1. So this summer is going to be
heavy
really busy, yeah.
Yes, sir. One of the big things you guys went through over the last year is you guys were a leader in the NAIA on jersey sponsorships. I know we talked earlier in the academic year when you guys were one of the first to announce that you had done so.
Yeah.
Why was that the right move for you, and what were maybe some of the challenges that you experienced going through this last year?
Well, I think for us, budget challenges like most small schools, so it really helped alleviate that and stretch our dollars. That was the big one. I think opportunities to brand with some of our partners, like our golf teams, 2 of the 3 golf courses that we use sponsored the golf shirts for our golf teams. So, it was a nice natural partnership in a way, just to recognize them and thank them, and then them support us. We have a baseball jersey sponsorship with Del Pape Distributing. We branded those jerseys just Victoria, so I think we'll be okay with those going forward. But it has piqued interest in softball uniforms and soccer uniforms. So, and with the change, it's a great opportunity, obviously, to help, stretch our dollars. We're going to have to change all our uniforms, and most of our uniforms are branded UHV in some way. So we're going to have to change those, obviously, because as of 9/1, we can't wear UHV or University of Houston Victoria branded gear anymore, which is interesting for soccer because we'll actually start this season as UHV and then have to switch 9/1 to A&M Victoria. So that'll be an interesting caveat, side note, wrinkle to the season.
So what is maybe, as you think about that revenue stream long term, how are you thinking through the balance between sports specific versus a broader department-wide deal? I imagine some of this is nuance. There's a lot of nuance there, given you guys already have some existing single sport sponsors in place.
It'll be interesting. There's so much interest in each sport that I don't know that there's really anybody that could come along and say, okay, I want them all. And there might be. I don't know. I haven't found them yet. I'd love it. It would make it a whole lot easier. But I think that opportunity exists. There's a lot of excitement in the Victoria area with the move to the A&M system from Aggies that live in the area. They're really excited. So I think there's some opportunity there. I don't know where that'll go, but the brand recognition in the Victoria area is very strong on the A&M brand. So, I think it'll help. We're 100,000 people in the county, roughly, 75,000 in the city of Victoria. So we're rather rural, and A&M system is much. They're a land grant, ag-based school. So I think it fits a little bit better that way. And a lot of the folks that I've had conversations with the last couple of weeks since Governor Abbott signed the bill think that that's a better fit. So I think the community feels that as well. And we've had great support from the mayor to the county judge to, community leaders, some of who are tied to the UH system and graduated from UHV, but they see this as a benefit to Victoria and its long-term growth. So that's where I think it plays out long-term, outside of just athletics and the university, but for the community.
Absolutely. So you guys are in the midst of going through a feasibility study for a lot of your facilities. What does that look like? Where are you guys at, and what are you evaluating moving forward?
Started with our existing sports, trying to get them situated. We have a soccer field on campus, but we're landlocked as a campus, so that space eventually will have a building or two on it, so we've got to find a place to move soccer down the road. Baseball and softball use city-owned facilities, and the high schools use them, youth sports use them, and we're down the pecking order as far as scheduling priorities. When you've got to pack your equipment in every day and out every day, it's not an ideal collegiate situation.
Yeah.
And I think it does hurt us a little bit in recruiting. So I think giving our student athletes a home that they can go take extra hacks in the batting cage, or throw off a mound or throw in the circle on their own instead of having to wait for that defined time space that we have to use those facilities, will certainly aid in retention, the student athlete experience, and also the development of their skills.
What are some of are there any other facilities you guys have looked at, as you mentioned, your current sports being ones you are looking at now?
Yeah. I think there's some opportunity with the soccer facility to utilize it for other sports. Football's a heavy lift, as you know. You can't just add football. You've got to add women's sports that come along and, for Title IX purposes. But what people don't realize is the budget implications of that. It becomes football plus, and football's an expensive sport to add. So, but I think there's opportunities for other sports. Basketball, volleyball, maybe beach volleyball might be one if you have volleyball. It's not out of the question to throw a beach pit in and start playing beach volleyball, especially, in South Texas where the weather's good, 10 months out of the year. So, I think there's opportunity then to expand and grow the sports that we have, and I'm excited for the future of UHV athletics, and soon to be, A&M Victoria athletics, because those opportunities I think are almost limitless.
Have you thought through what the right sport portfolio is in Victoria?
Yeah, I think it aligns with what the Red River Conference sponsors, obviously, because that's where we are and that's the geographical footprint. I think that's one thing that gets lost in the arms race of college athletics at our level is, schools even at our level are jumping conferences, then they're having to add sports, and then they're having to travel. And I understand our budget limitations. I think trying to get to the sports that are sponsored in the Red River and maybe encourage other Red River Conference schools to add sports to get to, the 6 that we need to compete for a conference championship might be a better way to go than trying to add sports that we've got to become affiliate members of a conference 3 states over just to play them. So, I think that's one thing that's gotten lost at all levels is that arms race to become a super conference or join a super conference. And I don't know that it works at small school levels. Like, I don't know that it works at the D1 level when you see Stanford having to go all the way across the country just to play, an ACC match midweek somewhere. So
how do you think about given what you just said, how do you think about the positioning and the strength of the NAIA given all of those changes that are happening around? We'll leave it at college athletics. There's a lot of other changes happening outside of just college athletics as well.
I think the NAIA is really positioned well. I think D1 has become very transactional in nature, with students able to enter the portal and leave because they're not happy with playing time, or they're not happy with the coach, or somebody's going to give them more money. The NAIA is very relational. We don't have hour restrictions, contact restrictions. We can build relationships with the student athletes, and not just at the coach level, but the AD level, the administrative level. Our president does a really good job of visiting with recruits on campus. If he's in his office and you're bringing a recruit by, he wants you to stop by and introduce him and stuff. So that's where I think the NAIA really has never wavered in that relational aspect of college athletics and getting to know the student athletes and meeting them where they are. And I think that's where the NAIA is positioned well going forward, because D1 athletics, and I think even with the portal and D2, it's become so transactional. If student athletes are looking, and even institutions are looking for a more relational experience, I think the NAIA is a perfect fit for them all. And I think we're going to see some. I think we're going to see some movement.
How have you guys activated around the Right Way to Play campaign that was rolled out a couple months ago?
You know, it's interesting because I think we've always done it the right way. We tell, we're not fully funded in scholarships. We don't have facilities. We don't have all the degree programs. So we don't tell our student athletes or our prospective student athletes what they will or what they could have, because we don't have it.
Right.
Here's our scholarship that we can give you, and here's your major that you're interested in. Here's your opportunity here. I don't know one of my coaches who promises anybody playing time, but you're going to earn your playing time, and we're going to help you do what we can to make you better so that you have the opportunity to earn your playing time if you're not getting it, or keep your playing time if somebody's coming along. And I think that, that honesty, that intentionality and that honesty is the right way to play. And so it really, I think it fits with what we've been doing, because that's kind of the way I was raised. Given an opportunity, make the most of it. You're not guaranteed anything in life, as anybody knows. And I think athletics still at our level demonstrates that every day.
Actually, I'll get you out of here in this last question. What is the thing one, two, three things you and your team are most eager to work towards in the next calendar year?
Well, I've got a couple of coaching searches that are ongoing, so filling those roles. I think repositioning ourselves a little bit with how we fit into the new system and how we'll have to do business, and really taking advantage of those opportunities with those who want to help us, whether they have the dollars to support us or they can connect us to those who can. I think those are the three big things. Finding coaches, because I've lost 2 long-term coaches. My soccer coach has just left for other reasons than athletics, and he's been with me since we started soccer. So finding somebody that can come in and fill that void is going to be huge. But I've got good coaches in place that understand what we're going to go through this summer. But I think they're all excited about what's going to happen and what the future holds with the facilities. Trying to get those. We got a new presidential search coming up as well. So all of that's going to mesh together. But I think just embracing the future and the change and not being fearful of it, and understanding that, we can only control what we can control, and doing the best that we can with those things that we can control to show everybody in Victoria and the surrounding area that, athletics, I think, can drive the future of the school, because athletics is such a galvanizing force.
Absolutely.
At colleges. There's no other place in the world where athletics symbolizes and drives your affinity to your alma mater. It doesn't happen in Canada, where I grew up. It certainly doesn't happen overseas. That's why so many international kids want to come over and play soccer and golf and the sports that they're good at.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to build on as we move from the University of Houston system into the A&M system. So those are probably the 3 that I think are going to be the biggest this summer and the next year.
Excellent. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me here at NACTA.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.